What is up, Dolphins, and welcome to a new Dolphins podcast, Dolphins versus the World, first episode of the new Dolphins podcast, Dolphins versus the World. I'm your host, Anthony Giandoletti Jr. Alongside me today, we have Chase Saul, and before we get into anything, good morning, man. It's good to start this podcast. I'm excited about it. How are you doing on this beautiful Tuesday morning?
I'm fired up. That intro was electric. Shout out to our producer, Joel here. That was fantastic. Loved it. I've been a lifelong Dolphins fan, and I cannot remember a time where there's been this much buzz around the team and where there's been this many reasons to be excited and look forward. And I'm just fired to get in here and talk some Dolphins. We got plenty to talk about for sure.
We do have plenty to talk about. This is kind of like the perfect time. I mean, if there's any time to transition into a podcast, you're going to have some stuff to talk about. And we are in the heart of free agency, and we're going to get into that. But before we do, just to all our listeners out there right now, we just wanted to say thank you for all the support on the first post that we made. Just continue supporting the podcast, supporting the channel. We're going to do our best to bring you guys the best Dolphins content that we can. A little preview of kind of how this podcast is going to go, the timeline of it this off season. Obviously, right now we're going to be doing a free agency podcast talking about what's been going on with the team leading up to free agency, what's going on right now, what we expect to happen, things that might be down the road for this team. And then towards the draft, we're probably going to do one or two episodes. It depends. Obviously the Dolphins not having a lot of draft capital, similar to last year, doesn't really give it that same, effect that we've had in years past where we have like 8 picks in the first 2 rounds. But we'll definitely do a podcast, at least one, talking about the draft, whether it's reacting to it or talking before it. And then as, OTAs, mini camp, stuff like that start, we'll obviously be doing podcasts, keeping you updated with that. But then once the season starts, we do plan to move to a weekly podcast. So we'll be doing an episode weekly once the season starts. But until then, it's kind of going to be a post when need to basis. It's not going to be something that you're going to get every week. But when big things happen, we will for sure do our best to put out content for you guys. So without further ado, Chase, you ready?
Let's get into it, man. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So before we get into like what's currently going on in free agency, I kind of wanted to set the landscape of things that I feel like we should probably talk about that happened leading up to this. Obviously, the Vic Fangio hire happened. I don't really think we need to spend any time on that just because we know Vic Fangio. We know this guy's going to come in. We know he's a dude. We know he knows what he's doing. He's going to fix this defense, which, obviously with injury underperformed in 2022. Dolphins were under cap or were over the cap, I should say. We were over the cap. We had to restructure some contracts, ended up restructuring Bradley Chubb for $14.7 million. Teron Armstead restructured him, saving $11.9 million. And then we restructured $18 million for Tyreek Hill. So we were able to get under the cap, which allowed us to make some of these moves that we're going to talk about. And I guess the first move that we made, it was with a player on this team, probably one of the most controversial players, maybe in the NFL. I think that'd be a safe, that'd be an argument that you could definitely have with Tua Tagovailoa. The Dolphins, everyone was wondering, are they going to pick up his 5th-year option? Injury history and all, play and all in consideration, are they going to pick up his 5th-year option? And ultimately, obviously, they did. I think that for a lot of people, including myself, I didn't really expect it to happen that soon. I did expect them to pick up the 5th-year option. So we'll start with you on this. Your thoughts on just, I guess, with everything, all your thoughts about Tua Tagovailoa, his season last year, whether or not you agree with the 5th-year option. Do you like it? Do you not like it? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, not that I think it was a no-brainer, but I mean, if you see what some of the quarterbacks are just making nowadays in free agency and everything, not that $25 million is cheap by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely felt like it was an option that we needed to or a decision we needed to make here because basically we got 2 years to figure out if he can stay healthy. I think we've came to a point where the play on the field when healthy is above. It's great. It's fantastic to be, in my opinion. And I mean, I'd like to see what he can do long term here. I think it's going to be pretty good, as you can tell by just the sheer amount of free agents that are like tweeting about Miami, wanting to come to Miami. And that starts from the quarterback down. This organization has always been pretty well run behind the scenes. You can say what you want about Stephen Ross, but he's not afraid to make money and make big moves in free agency. And that's what we're doing here. And I think it was a good start to basically just say to the whole team and all free agents that this is our guy moving forward for the next 2 years. We're going to see what we got, and we're going to build a quality team around him and push for greatness. And that's what I think we're going to be able to do here.
Yeah, I look, man, I completely agree with a lot of what you just said. I think that, I posted this on my Twitter page before. I think we could all agree that, like, I don't think many people expected it to be announced this soon necessarily. Maybe that the 5th-year option would happen, just because Barry Jackson had come out and wrote a great article about how, a vast majority of 5th-year options that got picked up didn't get picked up till later on. But I had posted before any of this happened that with any team, really, specifically the Dolphins in this scenario, when you're picking up the 5th-year option for Tua or not, the question was going to be, we're going to find out if the Dolphins' priority is more so based around cap space or Tua's injury, right? Because if they didn't pick up the 5th-year option, that tells me, hey, we're not worried about cap. We know that if we don't pick up his 5th-year option after this year, if all goes well, his number will increase exponentially because of the contract. But we're worried about the injury. And what the 5th-year option shows me is, all that talk about how they don't believe that the concussions are going to lead to more concussions. That's all stuff that they truly believe. It's not just stuff they're saying. You don't give a guy a 5th-year option, which, for those out there that might not know, 5th-year option is something that you can give rookies who are drafted in the 1st round. It's a fully guaranteed 1-year extension to their rookie deal. And obviously, depending on the position they play or where they were drafted, determines the amount. So for Tua, he's on the books for $9.6 million this year, $23.171 million next year. And that number, again, if all goes according to plan and he stays healthy and continues to play well this year, he'll get a contract extension at the end of this season. I fully believe it. And that number can actually be lowered. That 23 can be absorbed into the contract. So we're talking 2 years of Tua Tagovailoa for less than, $32.5 million total. When you look at the Daniel Jones, him having one good year of production and 15 touchdown passes, and he played 17 games. So you look at him having a decent year of production and he's getting 40 mil per year with an upwards of getting 45. I completely understand what the Dolphins did. Again, I think we can all sit here and agree, most of us that are level-headed, we don't really have questions when it comes to Tua's play on the field. I think 2022 showed me, like, yes, were there games where he didn't play his best, but again, new system, first-time head coach. He's still growing. If we're going to knock him just because he has one bad game, then it's like, you're never going to be happy with any quarterback. But he was electric. I think we saw the growth that we all wanted to. The system fits him perfectly. And again, we're all just sitting here hoping that, the injury concern, especially concussions, which can be, they're extremely serious. We're just hoping that that's not a long-term thing. Because obviously, this is any position. You can't have a franchise guy at a certain position if they're injury prone and if they're always going to miss, X amount of games per season. But I completely understand why they did the 5th-year option. It's the option that I would have leaned towards, just because, dude, we got people coming down the pipeline. We got Javon, Jalen Waddle,
a lot of contracts to be
right. If they give out here. Right. If they give Wilkins the extension, it's like, his number this year is going to be lowered. But the defensive tackle market right now is crazy. It's like guys are getting like 20 million. And so what's Wilkins going to get? Is he going to get closer to 18? Is he going to get closer to 22? So they have to think about this type of stuff. And clearly they believe, like many of us do, that the window is now if you're going to compete. So I'm on board with the move. I love what I saw from Tua on the field. He's got to stay healthy. And I think that's a reasonable thing to be concerned about. I don't think that that's being a hater or being anything like that. I think that he needs to stay healthy, and we hope he all stays healthy. But you got to be excited from what you saw on the field, in 2022.
No, totally. And even not just in the next 2 years, but if they want to be a competitor long term, which obviously would be the plan here first and foremost, would be his health. I mean, with any team, if he can't stay healthy and consistently give us 17 regular season games plus playoffs, or just about, he could miss a couple games, but if he's missing 5-6 games, whether it be to concussions or anything else, any injury related, then that'd be a concern where we wouldn't be able to commit to that moving forward. So I think right. We just did a good job of positioning ourselves here where we have options within the next 2 years. And Chris Grier has been a busy man the past few years, and I do not see that stopping. He is going to have his work cut out for him with all the young players that we have, like Wilkins, Waddle, Tua, and there's so many more that we're going to have to be giving contracts to here or make decisions if they're going to be Dolphins in the future or not. And I'm just looking forward to it. It's never a dull day on Twitter when you're a Dolphins fan. Even in the past, it's something different now, and now it's free agency. But before there was quarterback controversy, everything. It's right. Never a dull day here.
No, and like you said, Chris Grier and company, those in charge of cap, they're going to have their work cut out for them the next 4 or 5 years. But this is one of the negatives that comes with being good and having good players. Yes, it's a good problem to have. We can't keep going into every year where it's like, well, we have like this one guy who we could give an extension to. No, like this is what the teams like the Chiefs and the Bills, you have to deal with this. If you want good players, this is what comes along with it. So no, I agree. So heading into free agency, man, we're sitting there on Sunday. So I'm doing my draft. I'm trying to practice, film evaluation for the draft, and not necessarily doing huge big boards, but top 5 at each position, and trying to train and become better at that. So I'm sitting there on Sunday, and I'm doing I'm on Tucker Craft. I was doing Tucker Craft, and I'm sitting there watching some film and doing some evaluation, and I get an update on the OnlyFins. It's the 3 yards per carry OnlyFins Discord, which they're not paying me to say this, but it's $3, and I would highly recommend if you have it, just staying updated on Dolphins news. But they post on the Discord, and it's a link to Twitter, and it's Ian Rappaport, and it says the Dolphins are in talks to trade for all-pro cornerback Jalen Ramsey. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, this has got to be a fake. They had to be faked out. There's absolutely no way that they're getting Jalen Ramsey. And, when I saw that it was the actual Ian Rappaport Twitter account, I was like, oh my gosh, we actually got Jalen Ramsey. This is crazy. It kind of felt like a lesser but still exciting version of what happened last year with Tyreek Hill. And, for me, I'll start off on this one. At first, my thought was what's the compensation? Yeah. Right. Because even though I'm all for going out and getting elite players, I was like, at some point, you're not going to be able to keep everyone on your team. You're going to have to start drafting and developing some guys, and you can't keep giving away first round picks like they did with Chubb and Hill, which obviously especially with Hill, that was, I will not complain about that at all. The impact he had on and off the field for our team, sensational. But, I'm sitting there like, oh my God, how much do we give up? And apparently, in order to get Jalen Ramsey, I know he's not what he was 6 years ago, but in order to get Jalen Ramsey, all you got to give up is the 77th overall pick, which is a third that we got for Devontae Parker last year when we traded him to the Patriots. All it takes is that and your backup tight end who had 1 reception for 8 yards in 2 years. Apparently, that's all it takes. And when I saw that, I was like, look, I know you're going to have to pay him, but you get Jalen Ramsey with X and Holland. Who knows what they're going to do maybe at safety in the draft, or more so importantly with free agency. You have the front seven the way it's built and constructed. Vic Fangio, who's the godfather of the defense that Ramsey has been in for the last couple of years. I mean, sign me up for a third and Hunter Long. Are you joking me? So I was super excited about the move. I think that he offers you a lot of versatility and flexibility. I think that, again, even though he's not what he was when he came into the NFL, that's every position. Unless you're the quarterback, after 9 years in the NFL, you're not going to be the same, but he's still a really good player. I think that he's going to have a much better supporting cast around him, not only in the coaching staff, but players on the field than he had last year with the Rams. And I just think that, man, him and X, pairing them together, I mentioned this on Twitter when Noah Igbenogany got drafted. This is kind of what we expected between X, Byron, and possibly Noah getting groomed. We expected this trio that we're about to have with X. You have your more athletically gifted physical corner in Jalen Ramsey, and then you got your slot. Probably going to battle it out between Needham I think he's up for a contract, so he's a free agent. So if we keep him, then Needham and Cohu are going to battle it out. And I'm super excited about this. I think you're getting for Dolphin fans, we're getting a really, really good player who still is a top 5 secondary player in the NFL. What says you on the Jalen Ramsey trade?
Yeah, I think what it really brings to the table is just he's still such a fierce competitor, and he'll always be. He has such a desire to win, and just true passion. He's going to wear his heart on his sleeve every game. He's not afraid to make a big hit. I mean, as you saw in the Pro Bowl when he almost took out Tyreek Hill, and
right.
Who would have thought we went from that to them being teammates? I mean, that defense is going to be a nightmare to play with during the play and after the play. I mean, Jalen Ramsey is just going to be talking smack the whole time, and then Christian Wilkins is going to be messing with players. It's going to be a nightmare to play with. They're just going to be so physical, and then some of the other moves they're making in free agency is just to get like not tougher. I mean, everyone's already tough as can be in the NFL, but there's just going to be such a physicality level to this defense, along with the ability to just shut you down passing wise. I'm not really seeing where the weakness is currently. And look, there's still plenty of time left in free agency to get even stronger and deeper, which is so just nice to see finally from entire standpoint. It looks like this is the first time I can remember we don't have glaring holes all over the board in 6 places on both sides of the ball.
Oh, and here's the thing. Here's what excites me, 2 things. So number 1, the Dolphins still have we're at $7 million in cap space. We get $10 million. Oh yeah, we cut Byron Jones, by the way, everyone.
Yeah,
we didn't mention that, but I'm not a huge Byron Jones fan, so I mean, we all know that was kind of old news. But yeah, we cut Byron Jones, saves us $10 million in cap space post June 1st, so that could be allocated towards the draft and any right, exactly, free agents. Obviously injuries are a real thing, so we'll see what we need to address later on in the offseason. But right now Dolphins are sitting at $7 million. They're still able to create a lot of cap space. I mean, I don't know what's going to go on with Jerome Baker. I've heard they're still invested in the linebacker market, so I wouldn't be surprised, even though they got David Long already in free agency. I would not think that that's going to stop them from redoing the linebacker unit. Jerome Baker can save you. I want to say his numbers. I mean, it's between $6 and $9 million against the cap if they can trade him post June 1st or cut him. A guy like Cedric Wilson, rumor has it that the Cowboys regret trading him. Hey, dude, you give me a 4th or a 5th and you can take him with the depth.
I regret them letting him go too.
right. Right. And nothing against Cedric Wilson, but we didn't anticipate Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean? So,
no, exactly.
But we still have room to restructure contracts. Jalen Ramsey, we can restructure his contract, which can save us $10 million. So the Dolphins still have room to have even more cap space. So I'm letting everyone, they are not done in free agency. And let me say this. You want to know what I love most about the Jalen Ramsey trade is that he wanted to come here. Like this isn't a guy, again, Jalen Ramsey, we saw what he said about Josh Allen when he first came to the league. Like this is not a guy that's going to lie and just say things to say things. He wanted to come here. His agent said that he's been wanting this for like a month, that he's been, again, we saw the post where him and Long were at dinner, and he's trying to like get him on the team. And this is before he even officially was announced as a Dolphin. Like this is a guy that wants to be in Miami. And, for all those people out there, I understand we're paying him a lot. And again, you can get caught up on a 3rd round pick, but again, a 3rd round pick, that's Brandon Jones. You know what I mean? So it's like you can get caught up on that, but when elite players want to play for your team, you do not pass that opportunity up, especially, again, when it only comes for a 3rd round pick and Hunter Long.
Yes, and it's really just surreal to think if you think back to is it 3 years now when the year before we drafted Tua, everyone was saying this was the worst roster ever in the history of the NFL at points. They were saying. And now we have guys like Jalen Ramsey who are forcing moves here. I mean, the turnaround that this franchise has done has been nothing short of remarkable. I think even if we told the most devout of Dolphins fans a couple years ago that we would be in a position to just be pushing for Super Bowls where players want to force moves here to go compete for Super Bowls in the landscape of the AFC now, I don't know if you would really believe that, or you would think that we hit the biggest home run of all time in the quarterback, and we got Peyton Manning or something like that right out of the draft.
Yeah. Dude, and I think also you talk about the culture that Mike McDaniel and company are building down here. You talk about, again, I know people are going to have an issue with Stephen Ross. If the worst thing that Stephen Ross does is try to tank so that he can get the best quarterback for us, then I'm okay with that. I'm one of those people where like I don't kill the guy. Like, yeah, you're kind of an idiot for getting caught doing it, considering everyone does it. But I'm not going to knock the guy for trying to get his option at quarterback. Like, sue him. I don't know. Like I don't. It's not that big of a deal. But I think that, again, you look at the report card we got from the NFLPA. They're trying to build not only a premier franchise down here on the field, but they're just building a place where people want to come play. Yeah. It always used to be you came to Miami because of the weather and the no state tax, but now it's like, well, I mean, they're going to treat me really well. The facilities are up to date. The coaches are great, and the players on the field, it's just like, it's elite. So, I think that it's just kind of like this perfect storm that's brewing right now for the Dolphins.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want about Stephen Ross, and look, he's not the best decision maker. I think that's where his flaw is. He is never been good at just appointing others to do stuff for him, but he's never afraid to spend money and be aggressive in moves, and he wants this to be a winner more than anyone, I'm sure. And look, and I hope he gets his wish, because that would for all of us as well as him, that'd be the best thing I think that we all want to see. And I think it is time for the Dolphins to step up here in South Florida. And look, we got to win a playoff game first and foremost. But
right.
I think the way that we're going to be talked about here during the rest of the offseason, it's going to just set us up for the highest of hopes. And I mean, it's going to be great, a fun year, but oh boy, I hope it ends well.
Right. Yeah. Me and you both. So moving on to, so that, again, this is before legal tampering period even starts, which, it's kind of funny. Again, speaking of tampering with the Stephen Ross thing, all these teams magically come up with these 10, 20 page contracts, details of incentives, guarantees, signing bonuses. They all come out with it in like 5 minutes of the window,
but
again,
just the Dolphins are the boogeyman.
Right. Exactly. So but again, the Ramsey trade, I think it caught us all a little off, not necessarily because it's Ramsey. I guess some people did report it or privately kind of knew there's something going on possibly, but I think it kind of caught us off guard that it came like before anything happened. But then actual legal tampering period opens, and like we all predicted for the last couple of months, Mike White was going to be the first free agent addition that we made. Obviously, I'm just joking, but we knew that Mike McDaniel had talked about And it had been reported by local beat writers and national media that the Dolphins were going to look to upgrade that backup quarterback position. They end up getting Mike White. At first, it was a 2-year deal. We saw that it was 2 years up to $16 million, but then the contract details were released. I don't know if you've seen this, but the actual deal, it's a 2-year, $8 million deal, including 3.42 in signing
very
bonus.
Friendly, very team friendly.
Yep, 4.5 in total guarantees, and up to $4 million in playing time and team incentives each year. So essentially, let me break this down for you. It's a 1-year, $4.5 million deal. That's all that's guaranteed. Each year, half of that $16 million is only incentives. So essentially, it's a 2-year, $8 million deal, $4 million per year average. But really, again, 1 year you get them for $4.5 million. Everything after that's not guaranteed. So I think, again, it's a backup quarterback. If everything goes according to plan, we're not going to be talking about Mike White this season. But again, you have to understand the situation and context matters with Tua and the injuries. I think that, again, is he going to move the needle for a lot of people? No. I would have preferred Minshew or Heineke, if I'm being honest.
Doesn't move the needle.
Right. I'm not I'm not going to say that this is like, oh my God, this is incredible, but I'm not going to sit here and like freak out too much about it because, again, if all goes according to plan, like Tua knows he needs to stay healthy this year. And so, like, you know, we shouldn't have to be worrying about – the only way we should be worrying about Mike White is if the Dolphins are destroying someone that badly to where he goes on the field and plays. That should be the only time you're seeing Mike White on the field, hopefully.
And good for him. Living out his childhood dream. You know, he's from the area. He's going to play with true passion. And it's awesome to see. I mean, he like that's what everyone, you know, dreams of when they're growing up. If you haven't seen the picture, there's a picture of him at a couple years old at a Dolphins game in the decked out gear. And, you know, that was me too. And I'm happy for him. Looking forward to what he can do. We'll see. I mean, he's still young. He's still got room to grow. Hopefully he gets under Mike McDaniel. And even if he does have to play when his number's called, he's ready to go. And he's not one to shy away from throwing the ball around. And maybe with this team, with the talent we're going to have at receiver and everything, that'll be a nice fit if the moment comes where he does have to play. But fingers crossed. Unfortunately for you, Mike White, I do hope we never see you in a game.
Right. I think we can all agree that, and again, that has nothing. It could be whoever's back there.
Personal, exactly.
Right. We need to, again, if Mike White is on the field for a lot, we have more problems than him being on the field. There, we have bigger issues of us moving forward, obviously, with Tua.
Yeah, that would be the least of the concerns, I think.
Yeah, right. Of Mike White being on the field at quarterback. But again, you know, kind of a quiet early start to free agency, and I think a lot of people, you know, expecting, you know, maybe Poyer. We heard about some linebackers. We didn't really get anything for quite some time, but then yesterday around like mid afternoon, you know, sometime before dinner, we gets announced that the Dolphins are signing David Long Jr. He's a tight end from the Tennessee Titans to a 2-year deal, $11 million.
Linebacker.
Oh, what did I say?
Tight end.
Oh yeah, obviously he's not a tight end, guys. That I'm an idiot. But so David Long, linebacker, 2-year deal, $11 million, $5.5 million per year. You know, we're gonna start with you. I'm not sure if you know too much about David Long or like what your thoughts are on it, but $5 million per year for a linebacker that, when healthy at his caliber, can play to his level. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I'm honestly, to be quite frank, not familiar with him at all. But then once I did see that we signed him out, you know, the first thing, as everyone does, is check the replies on Twitter to see. And it looked like it was some positive stuff. And I started looking at the numbers, and I do see what they're doing here. And I think it's a great idea. Like the run stopping that they're trying to add with him, between him, Wilkins, and even Jalen Ramsey. Those are fierce run stoppers. And if we could stop the run as well as we, on paper, at least look like in the secondary, are going to be able to stop the pass, it's going to be a deadly combo here.
And to me, again, I understand like the injuries, like I do. But David Long, this is going to be one of those, I feel like, where we could be sitting here at the end of 2023 saying, like, it's kind of like the Zach Sealer, where you're like, how the heck are they getting away paying this guy only $5.5 million per year? Like, it's because, again, the reason that number is so low for someone his caliber is because of the injury. But I mean, you're talking about a guy that was top 4 rated in run stopping. You're talking about a guy that was tied for second in both pressure rate and pass block win rate. I mean, you're talking about a guy, and then you're talking about a guy who, right now, I think one of the biggest strengths on our team is coverage at the linebacker position, and you're talking about a guy that excels in that. So, again, I understand the injury. I do 100%. But, again, Chris Greer's never shied away from that, of not taking guys, because of injury, for better or for worse. And I think that David Long's one of those guys where, again, like you, I wasn't like super familiar. I knew he was kind of on the Dolphins' radar from people I follow and stuff like that. I knew he was, but definitely not someone that I could say, like, it's not like a Fred Warner where I like know so much and I watch them all the time. But from the stuff that I saw, again, once I found out about the move, I started watching some breakdowns. I started watching some all 22, listening to what people who I trust know just more than me, like Kyle Krabs and stuff like that about football, listening to what they had to say. And everyone you listen to is just, they're raving about the move. And so, again, we need linebackers, man. We need linebackers. Yeah, I've been saying 100%, for years. 100%. I've been saying for years, we need, like, you can do whatever you want, but until you get that middle linebacker that people actually fear, the Fred Warners, the Bobby Wagners, the Ray Lewises, the Zach Thomases, obviously from Miami, like, until you get one of those guys to be that leader at the center of your defense, like, it's going to be hard to really be a true fundamentally elite defense. And I think that David Long's the first step in that, and I think that moving on in free agency, I've heard, don't be surprised for a Levante David or a Wagner, maybe even if they want to go a cheaper option, a Drew Tranquil, who comes with Ronaldo Hill from the Chargers. So, we shall see, but I think that, again, I'm going to defer to Vic Fangio in this. It's one of those off seasons where I'm like, Vic Fangio like really likes a guy. It's not like in years past where it's like Josh Boyer liking a guy. No offense to him, but like if Vic Fangio really likes a guy, I'm going to be like, you know what? You've been coaching in the NFL longer than I've been alive. I'm just going to defer to you on this one. Yeah.
And then a quiet, also under the radar linebacker move was the re-signing of Duke Riley here. Yeah. Nice depth piece. I mean, the one thing I just want to kind of touch on here real quick is, and we're going to do these signings, I would assume, later in the season, but the special teams needs to be fixed just all around. And Duke Riley will go back to playing, kickoff, kick return, punt. But yeah, we need to get some more depth signings. I personally, I don't think David Long is gonna play there. So yeah, I think we're gonna make a couple more moves in the linebacker position here to just beef up and get some depth and cover both sides of the ball. In special teams, can't forget about special teams. We gotta get some upgrades there.
Yeah, and the Duke Riley signing, like, again, in a perfect world, we would all love for every single move to just be like, a Jalen Ramsey style move. But you got to have the mundane. You got to have the moves where it's just like, he was a solid player for us, especially like on special teams. It's not going to cost the Dolphins that much at all to bring him back. If you can, and you have good quality depth pieces, I mean, we saw it with injuries last year, not only on our team, but across the NFL. You have to have depth. I think Riley fits the mold of this scheme for what they're wanting to do with the linebacker position. Again, is he going to move the needle for a lot of people? No, it's a depth signing, but I think that, you need those in order to build a good team. You need the boring depth signings to fill out the roster. So,
quiet. Yeah. Have you heard anything in relation to Van Ginkel? What's going on there? Or?
I have, it's been weird. So I haven't heard. I'm someone who's like, I'm a huge Andrew Van Ginkel fan. If it were me, again, and this is just my personal opinion, I would probably like. I know a lot of people might disagree with this, but if I am going to like sign a depth edge player or keep someone, I would rather have him than like Melvin Ingram, or honestly, I'd rather like trade an Emmanuel Ogbah, get some cap space, and then sign Andrew Van Ginkel. I just like, I don't know. I like the player more. I just think that he is just 100% energy all the time. He makes plays. He's around the ball all the time, but I have not heard what's going on there. I wouldn't be shocked if you found out like, he ends up signing with someone like the Patriots because that's kind of what they do. But I would like them to sign him back. But no, I have heard or read nothing from any, local beat writers or, people in the know about them with Andrew Van Ginkel. I haven't even heard like updates with the Wilkins extension because that's something where, at least
I was hoping that'd be done.
Right. But, and I've also, Reason brought up a good point on his show last night about like, don't be surprised if internally they have conversations of like, do we move on from Christian Wilkins after how much we'd have to pay him? Do we try to trade him for, a first and then trade up in the first for someone like Jalen Carter who's falling? I'm not saying I want that to happen, but when Reason brings stuff like that up, he doesn't just say it for fun. It's not like he's just out here being like, let me just say things that make no sense. Like he usually says things and you take him seriously. And he's not saying that they would do that, but it's definitely something that makes you wonder. They haven't come out with an extension for him. Maybe he's asking again, if he's asking for like $22 million, it's like, I know you're really good. Again, you got Phillips coming down the pipeline. You got Waddle, you got Hot. So, I'm not saying I don't want him on the team, but if you could maybe get him for like a 4-year, $64 million deal, like 16 per year, maybe guarantee, I don't know, 40 to 50 of that. I think that's kind of the sweet spot for a Christian Wilkins deal. But man, it's going to be, I know this year it'll absorb some of his contract. It'll actually lessen his hit. But man, you're talking about next year being again, $20+ million cap hit. It is a lot. I love Christian Wilkins. It was Chris Greer's first draft pick, so I highly doubt he lets him go. But definitely something that, again, we have to, like Reason said, just something to keep on the radar for sure.
Yeah. I personally, I think yesterday for free agency, just all over the league, it not a dud, but it seemed a lot quieter than years past. If I remember, I feel like in years past, like as soon as noon struck and the window opened, it was just like a absolute frenzy of just.
Well, you're seeing teams just be smarter with their money. Yeah, I think that's 100%. What you're seeing. You're seeing teams around the NFL that are like, hey, let's just wait. Was there a wide receiver signed yesterday? I don't think so.
No, the first one, Alan Lazard, actually got signed to the Jets earlier today.
So yeah. I saw that
there.
Right. That's a whole I don't know, man. Yeah. That doesn't. Again, that's another move where I'm like, doesn't move the needle for me in a panic mode. All of a sudden now, if Rodgers goes there, especially with what? Oh my gosh, with what we're doing on defense, I'm like, please.
Yes,
please set your franchise back 3 years. I would love nothing more. Okay. So that's really all the re-signings. Moving forward with free agency. I'm on Twitter right now. I'm updating the feed. I don't see any breaking news or anything like that regarding the Dolphins. What are some moves or maybe positions that you are hoping that the Dolphins? I know you touched on special teams, but are there any moves, whether it's players we re-sign, guys we obviously there are rumors out there about like Dalvin Cook or Austin Eckler or Derrick Henry being on the trade block. What are some moves that you're hoping to see from the Dolphins coming up?
Me personally, I've been saying it always, and this is always just a wish of mine that I never will be granted, but I'd just like us to see go beef up the O-line. I've not liked what I've seen out of Eichenberger and Jackson, but I think for better for worse, they will be our starting linemen next year if they are healthy. And I expect us to make a big move today, whether that be as you were touching on earlier, possibly Dalvin Cook, maybe a safety in Jordan Poyer. I think one of those may get done today just because there's so much other stuff that needs to be done all over the board for us. Whether that being the Wilkins restructures and some other player or extension, and some other deals. I expect them to, get up to that cap here soon and then start working around it, start restructuring Baker or Agba and go forward from there. So if I had any predictions to make, I would say I think maybe we try to get Poyer in the building today would be if that's going to happen.
Right. No, yeah, and I think the Dolphins right now are a little above $7 million in cap space. So Yeah, I wouldn't expect many, like, I don't think it's going to be many, like, big moves or really a lot of moves in general as far as additions. I think if anything, you might see some restructures, obviously to create more cap space. And then, yeah, as far as players, man, I mean, Jordan Poyer, it's one of those where, like, I would love to have him on the
The
team. If he's
stars
not
just
on,
seem aligned.
right, I would love to have him on the team again, like we talked about with Ramsey. When elite players want to play for you, you don't just pass up the opportunity. Depends on his price tag again. If he's willing to come here for under like $9-10 million a year, I'll definitely, I would love to do that just because you make the rich richer. And I think with this defense, you add someone to complement Holland, at the safety position, it would be sensational. But again, not something where, like, it's a business. If he doesn't come here and he goes somewhere else, I would just be happy as long as he's not on the Bills, because as long as they get weaker and weaker, that'd be awesome. They did free up cap. They were under the cap though, so like I thought the same thing. And like I think right now they're barely above us. They're at like 7.9 in cap space available because they were under. And since the league year starts tomorrow, every team has to be under the cap by tomorrow. So that's why I said, like, the Dolphins, if they do sign someone like a Poyer today, say they get him for 3 years, right? Say they get him for like 3 years, $27 million, let's say nine per year, that'd put them over the cap. So they would have to restructure some deals so that by tomorrow they were under it. But I don't really expect too many big moves. I think that, it's kind of, I feel like at this point, it's kind of like a pipe dream to expect any big moves on the offensive line. I know at running back position, there are the trade rumors. We talked a little bit about this before we came on. I'd be fine with like an Austin Eckler. I think he's cheaper, but obviously Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry are great players. So depends on what they're going to command contract wise when they come here. But you still got Mostert. You still got Mostert, who you haven't re-signed. You re-signed Ahmed to I think it's like a $1.8 million deal up reportedly. Jeff Wilson possibly you could bring back. So, the running back class is loaded. I did my running back rankings. The running back class, I mean, you're going to get guys in the 4th round that are day one starters. Same thing with tight end. So in free agency, I just expect it to more be re-signing guys that make sense on your roster, maybe a Wilkins extension, restructures. Who knows if they're going to trade, like a Cedric Wilson. I think that's the type of moves you're going to start seeing. I don't expect any huge moves, anything massive. Maybe like, again, if you consider Jordan Poyer massive, then a move like that, maybe another linebacker, but I don't think I really don't think it's going to be anything too crazy. And, I don't really think, if I'm being honest, aside from offensive line, which, I wish we could go get a solid right tackle. I don't really think there are many like huge gaps on this team. Even running back, it's like I'd much rather fix the O-line.
Yeah. And my philosophy personally on running back is just, like you said, there's so much talent in college nowadays that you could get a day one starter in the 4th round. And, I think that Dalvin Cook would be the most probable option. A, he's from here, and B, the Vikings are in the NFC. I think it's a little less likely that the Chargers would want to move Eckler in conference, just because they don't want to see him again because he's so talented. But I mean, we'll see. They got their hands full, and they're going to have to do something at running back, whether that be running it back with Mostert and Jeff Wilson, or drafting someone with the few draft picks we have. They're going to make a move. So I think there'll probably be a shakeup of some sort at running back. I think there'll be a new face. I don't know if it'll be a bell cow, but we'll see here.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I think we got a lot covered on this first episode. I think it was, I think we kind of killed it, not to pat ourselves on the back, but, I think we covered a lot. Any last closing thoughts you have before we head out of here?
No. Let's just, it was a good episode. It was awesome. Pleasure talking with you. Looking forward to the future here with this podcast. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, man, I'm excited too. I think that we got to put in the hard work, but I think we can do something really special with this podcast. And again, hoping for some hoping for some news coming down the pipeline, maybe in the next 48 hours. Just selfishly as a Dolphins fan, wanting some exciting stuff to talk about. But all right, guys, thank you so much for joining us today on Dolphins versus the World. We really appreciate your support as always. Make sure if you are not following the podcast, following the channel, make sure you do that. Chase, I don't know if you want to give your username, but you can find us both on Twitter. I'm at FinSportsFB on Twitter.
I'm at Chase Saw 52. Forgive my name. I'm in in a bit of a meme war with some friends. So, but we'll get over that soon. We'll get some Dolphin centric themed here.
Yeah, we got some people on the podcast too that aren't even on today. We're gonna have, there's more people that are part of the team that, for viewers, you're probably gonna get a different blend or different combination of people every episode to kind of make it new and interesting. So, definitely exciting stuff. Again, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time here on Dolphins versus the World. Fins up.
Thank you guys for listening. Peace.